My name is Danny Mekonnen. I'm an Ethiopian-American musician, saxophonist living in the Jamaica Plain Roxbury area. We are here in my band's practice space. The group is called Debo Band, and we've been together for about 10 years. So I started playing the saxophone when I was 12 in the 6th grade in middle school. My second and third year of playing the saxophone, I really got into it and got better. And one of the things that really drew me to the instrument beyond sort of that first year was when in the 7th and 8th grade, my middle school band directors started giving me jazz recordings, jazz CDs to listen to. I think it was exposure to that music, primarily from the 50s and 60s, that then turning to my parents' collection of cassette tapes, I heard the similarities. I heard the saxophone in my parents' music collection, and the saxophone was a very important instrument in Ethiopia, so much so that the saxophone is like an adopted instrument. It's almost a traditional instrument in Ethiopia. I mean, the total population of Ethiopian Americans in the town I grew up in was me plus my parents, you know? So there wasn't much to connect me to my roots, but the saxophone became a really important bridge to my culture. So I acquired this horn from a friend, an Ethiopian-American musician who is a mentor of mine, and he found it in an instrument storage room at the National Theater of Ethiopia. I think he found it, recognized what it was. It's a Mark VI, which is a very important saxophone, sort of a coveted instrument. So the story as I understand it, or as I've also sort of filled in the gaps, you know, in a kind of romantic way, like trying to imagine how this horn may have gotten to Ethiopia. I know that it's from the mid to late 1960s. This would have been the heyday of the Haile Selassie regime. He was the emperor of Ethiopia, and he was deposed in 1974. And during the late 60s and early 70s, there were a number of bands that were under the Haile Selassie sort of payroll. And those notably were the Haile Selassie Theater Orchestra, the Imperial Bodyguard Band, and the Police Orchestra. So these are the three big orchestras. This horn, I imagine, was ordered directly from the Selmer factory in France. It has engravings which indicate that it was not only made in France, but assembled and polished and ready for distribution and sale directly from France. This was the Mark VI that just had all the bells and whistles. The fact that that a rare saxophone of this caliber, a Mark VI, which is a coveted horn, found its way to Ethiopia, was discovered in Ethiopia some nearly 40 years after it was made, and it was found in an instrument storage room. The only owner it had was probably, you know, the Ethiopian government. You know, it went from the Haile Selassie regime to another regime to now the third regime. I don't know who played it, and it'd be kind of hard to figure that out. It would have very likely featured on a number of, you know, the recordings that I listened to from the 70s. You know, the saxophone, and then by extension, Debo Band, my group that plays Ethiopian pop music, you know, these are the ways that I'm able to be most Ethiopian, you know? Again, not being fluent in the language, not living in, you know, large Ethiopian communities, having never lived in Ethiopia. I've spent about 6 months there over the course of 5 trips, you know, but this is the way that I connect to who I am, and so for that reason, this isn't just a collection of saxophones that are supposed to sit on shelves. Like, these saxophones are really a part of who I am on a daily basis. The life that I can breathe into them is, you know, and that sound that they create is a really important part of who I am.